Hello, today is August 20th, 2016. My name is William Winkle. This interview is for the Detroit Historical Society's Detroit 67 Oral History Project. And I am sitting down with
Sheila Sharp.
Thank you so much for sitting down with me today.
You're welcome.
Can you please start by telling me where and when were you born?
I was born February 13th, 1957 at Herman Kiefer Hospital.
Did you grow up in the city?
Yes, I did.
What neighborhood did you grow up in?
I grew up in central Detroit, West Side Central.
What street?
We moved a lot. I first started school when we lived on Euclid and John C. Lodge. I started at Fairbanks, Fairbanks Elementary School. From there, I went to Thurkel. From there, I went to Crossman. From there, Peck and Longfellow and Sanders. And then I went to junior high school at Hutchins Junior High. And I went to high school at Northern High, which is on Woodward and Owens.
The neighborhoods that you moved around in, were they integrated neighborhoods?
No, sir, not basically. We had maybe Albanian family here or there, a Chinese family here or there, but it was mainly African American.
Okay. What was it like growing up in that neighborhood in the late 50s?
That
Early
would
60s.
be in the early 60s. It was fun during the time I was in elementary school. We used to play outside a lot. We played tag, hopscotch, basketball, baseball, different games like that. We didn't watch much TV. When I got to junior high school, I was bullied a lot. And that continued until I got to high school. And once I got to high school, I joined the swim team, became co-captain of our swim team. And I pretty much stayed with the swim team and stayed out of trouble. There was always somebody who wanted to fight me all the time, and I stayed swimming to avoid fights. But I had good teachers. I also became pregnant at the age of 15, which wasn't very good back then. Nowadays it's commonplace. But I did manage to finish school and raise my son.
Going back to when you were 10 and it's 67. How'd you first hear what was going on?
When I was 10 years old, I was in my cousin Gwen's wedding. My cousin Paula and I were flower girls. At the reception, I danced and danced and danced. Gwen and her husband went off to their honeymoon to the Pontchartrain Hotel in downtown Detroit. I stayed at my grandmother's house that night. When I woke up that morning, there was a lot of commotion in the neighborhood. I didn't know at the time what was going on, but I found out later that day that there was a riot going on. I didn't know what a riot was, but from the way everyone was acting, I soon realized that it was not a good thing. There was a lot of smoke in the air, and I could see a lot of heavy smoke plummeting up into the air. There were a lot of fires burning, and I was scared. I was scared that everything was going to burn, including my grandmother's place. I was sitting on a stoop on the front porch. People were coming down the block from Linwood Avenue to LaSalle Street. She lived on Monterey. They were coming down the street with all kinds of items loaded in their arms. I ran in the house to tell my grandmother what I was seeing. And she came out on the porch, and I know this is what she said. I'm commenting on what she said. She says, "Niggers have gone crazy. Now they're looting and burning up everything. Oh my God, what's going to happen next?" I looked up at my grandmother, and I asked her, "What is looting?" And she looked back at me and she said, "Looting is when people break into stores and places of business and take things that don't belong to them." She told me to come inside, that she needed to turn on the TV and see what was going on out there. So we went inside and turned on the TV, and the news was on every channel. We watched and listened to the news people. They said police had raided a blind pig on the corner of 12th and Claremont. I thought to myself, now remember this is from a 10-year-old's perspective. I thought to myself, what would a blind pig be doing on 12th and Claremont? And why would police spray it with Raid? And why were people so angry about a pig? This had to be some special kind of pig because we never had pigs in our neighborhood before. The telephone rang. It was my dad on the line. He spoke with my grandmother and told her what had happened that night before and that I should stay with her because things were really bad where my mom, dad, and brothers were at our house. My grandma got off the phone from speaking with my dad. She answered my question. I asked her about the blind pig. That is when I learned that a blind pig was an after-hours joint, a place where people went to party after the bars had closed at night. My grandmother told me the police started beating up people who were at the after-hours joint, and there were some young boys across the street on the roof throwing bottles and bricks at the police, and then that everything went crazy. Then my grandmother, she says, I knew it. I just knew it. I knew them damn cops would get there someday. She was shouting and smiling and angry all at the same time. I didn't understand why she would be acting that way about the police getting hit with bottles and bricks and things. She went on shouting, it's about time somebody put them sons of bitches in their place. They can't keep treating us like they do. I was really puzzled then because we had always learned in school that the police were our friends. Boy, I learned a lot that summer. That evening, the police came slowly down the block, announcing over a loudspeaker, the city of Detroit has been placed under martial law. No one is to be outside of their homes from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., or you will be arrested. My grandmother quickly got me and herself inside the door. We watched the TV to see what was going on around town. The TV was showing people looting. They were running with all kinds of things. We watched firemen put out fires that were huge. Some fires were more than just one building on the street. Later I learned there was 12th Street that was burning so badly. I became more scared than I was at first because my family was in the middle of the chaos. Our house was on West Philadelphia between Woodrow Wilson and 12th Streets. That was like maybe a few 5-6 blocks from Claremont. The rioting went on for a few days more. At night, we could hear gunfire. My dad told my grandma to put blankets up to the windows so the light would not shine through. I was attending summer school that year. We could not go because of the riot. So we rode our bikes up and down the block. There was an ice cream store at the end of the block at Monterey and Linwood Streets. And a lot of soldiers were sitting on the grass near the corner, and some were standing in line to buy ice cream. Some of the soldiers were very nice and spoke to us. I had never seen a soldier before, and I was fascinated with them because they had rifles. I heard some grown-ups talking about the soldiers. They called them National Guards. And someone said, if those National Guards tell you to do something, you better do it or they will shoot you. I rode my bike as fast as I could to my grandmother's place to tell her what I just heard. She laughed and said, don't listen to everything you hear people say. Those soldiers are not going to shoot you. They're here to make sure we don't get hurt while all this rioting is going on. Days passed and someone got back to normal. I went back to my mom, dad, and brothers. On the way home, I could see a lot of buildings had burned. Some were still smoldering. I smelled the scent of burnt bricks in the air. Nothing too much was the same. There were a few stores still standing that had not been torched by fire. Some places had Soul Brother painted on them. When I got home, my brothers were telling me about everything that was going on while I was at Grandma's. They had told me all about the shooting that was going on around the house. We lived in a 4-family flat on Philadelphia and Woodrow Wilson Streets, right there on the corner. My baby brother told me that he and my dad were walking down the street and gunfire had broke out. He said, me and Daddy were walking down the street going home and somebody fired a gun. The police told us to get inside, but we were not yet at our house. Daddy picked me up and put me on his shoulders. and then a National Guard shouted for us to go inside and fired a shot over our heads. I was hearing all kinds of stories from friends and neighbors. I was a little sad that I missed all the action, but from what everyone was saying, I was better off at Grandma's house. The National Guard stayed around for a few days more. They had been staying at Hudson's Junior High School. That is where we were going to summer school at the time. The soldiers left and we returned to summer school. My classmates and I could not stop talking about the events that happened in the last few weeks. We all shared our stories with one another. I was telling everybody about an incident I had heard about. I heard that a little girl was killed on West Philadelphia and 12th in an apartment building by either National Guard or police gunfire. They had shot through an apartment window. Because her brother was near the window, he was lighting a cigarette, and they fired through the window, killing her. The little girl that was killed was one of my classmates' little sister. We all felt very bad for our classmate. When she told us it was her little sister that had been shot, she began to cry. It took things a while to get back to normal. We all stopped talking about the riots and began to concentrate on passing the class. That's all I have.
Thank you so much for sitting down with me and sharing your story.
You're welcome.